You are not weak. You are restrained, and not because you do not know how to fight back, but because you learned how to read a room before you ever learned how to dominate one. So people looked at your patience and called it passivity. They looked at your kindness and called it softness. They looked at your self-control and assumed you had no edge. They were wrong. Today I'm going to teach you the gentle authority framework so you can command immense respect in any room without ever having to raise your voice or compromise your peace. Because some of you have spent years being misread. You let things slide. You do not react to every jab. You do not need to be the loudest person in the room. You give people the benefit of the doubt longer than most would. You listen. You observe. You absorb tone before you answer words. And because you do that, people make an expensive mistake. They assume you are harmless. They assume you are unsure. They assume you can be pushed. They assume you will keep accommodating, keep smoothing, keep understanding, keep tolerating, because that is what you have done before. That is what happens to the misunderstood empath. Not just the emotional person, the perceptive person, the person who notices shifts before others name them. The person who can feel disrespect before it becomes obvious. The person who catches the little smirk, the subtle dismissal, the change in tone, the strategic interruption, the quiet attempt to test boundaries without making it look direct. You catch all of that, and because you do not explode immediately, people think you missed it. You did not miss it. You logged it. That is the difference. So let me ask you something honestly. Have you been called too nice? Have you heard things like, you need to be more assertive? People walk over you because you let them? You're too understanding? And maybe some of that feedback came from people who cared. But maybe some of it also came from people who were uncomfortable that your power did not look aggressive enough for them to recognize it. Because our culture has trained people to respect volume faster than composure. It has trained people to notice dominance before depth. So when someone holds themselves calmly, speaks carefully, and refuses to perform force just to prove they have it, others often misread that as weakness. But what they are actually looking at is self-command, and self-command is rarer than noise. You know what we people do? They leak instantly. They react to everything. They say too much too fast. They need to prove their power in real time because they do not trust it to exist without a performance. But you are different, or at least, this is the version of you that is trying to emerge, the version that does not have to shout to be felt, the version that does not need chaos to establish presence, the version that can make one sentence land heavier than somebody else's whole monologue. That is quiet authority, and it starts by understanding what people assume about you. Because if you do not see the assumptions clearly, you will keep either over-accommodating them or over-correcting against them. So let us name the 3 assumptions people make about kind people who have not yet embodied authority. First, they assume kindness means weak boundaries. They think because you are patient, you will keep taking it. Because you are polite, you will not confront. Because you are calm, you will stay available. Second, they assume self-control means lack of options. They think you are not reacting because you cannot, not because you are choosing not to. Third, they assume softness means low consequences. They think if they cross a line, nothing meaningful will happen. That is the recap. Weak boundaries, no edge, low consequences. Those are the assumptions. And once people make those assumptions, they start testing you. Not always with dramatic disrespect, usually with subtle things. Talking over you in meetings. Taking longer than necessary to reply to your serious messages, but expecting immediate access to you. Making little jokes at your expense, and then watching your face to see what you will tolerate. Dropping last-minute tasks on you because they assume you will say yes. Interrupting your rest because they believe your peace is more flexible than their convenience. That is how testing works, quietly, incrementally. They do not start by trying to dominate you completely. They start by checking whether your kindness has teeth. And for some of you, that is why the frustration is so deep. Because you are not angry only about one event. You are angry about a pattern of being read as available when you were actually discerning. A pattern of being treated as soft ground when you were simply choosing not to become hard. That can create confusion inside you. Because part of you wants to stay kind, and another part of you is tired of being mishandled. So now you start wondering whether kindness itself is the problem. It is not. Unframed kindness is the problem. Kindness without visible structure gets misread. Kindness without consequence gets exploited. Kindness without authority becomes an invitation for immature people to test limits. That is why this twist matters. Kindness is camouflage for strategy, not in a manipulative way, in a mature way. It means your calm is not emptiness. It is information control. It means patience is not passivity. It is observation. It means your softness is not surrender. It is disciplined restraint. That is a very different posture, and once you understand that, you stop feeling ashamed of your nature. Now you stop trying to become louder just to look stronger. Now you stop imitating people whose whole version of power depends on intimidation. Now you start learning how to weaponize what is already natural to you. Your steadiness, your timing, your perception, your refusal to waste force. That is where authority begins, not by becoming someone else, by structuring the power you already carry. And one of the first ways that power becomes visible is through patience. This is where most people miss the whole game, because they think patience is passive waiting. No, patience is data collection. Patience is refusing to spend energy before you know where the real opening is. Patience is holding your ground long enough for other people to reveal their motives, their emotional habits, their level of self-control, and the strategy they think they are getting away with. That is why patience can become a weapon, not a cruel weapon, a clean one, because the patient person often sees more than the reactive one ever will. When someone interrupts you, the reactive person rushes to reclaim the floor instantly. The patient person notices the interruption, lets the room register it, and then decides exactly how to respond in a way that costs the other person more credibility than emotion ever could. That is power, not immediate discharge, precision. And one of the simplest expressions of that precision is the 5-second pause. That mini example looks small, but it changes rooms. Somebody says something loaded, dismissive, passive-aggressive, slightly disrespectful, slightly manipulative. The old version of you responds immediately, over-explains, laughs awkwardly, defends too quickly, fills the air because silence feels dangerous. But the quieter, stronger version of you does something else. You pause. 1, 2, 3. You let the sentence sit where they put it. You let them hear it too. You let the room feel what was just said. Then you respond from choice, not reflex. That pause does 3 things at once. It tells your body, I am not in danger. It tells them, I am not easy to rush. And it tells the room, I know exactly what just happened. Do you understand how powerful that is? A lot of weak dynamics survive on your speed. People rush you because rushed people are easier to control. They pressure you because pressured people speak before they think. They create awkwardness because awkward people often betray themselves trying to smooth it out. That is why I need to ask you this honestly. Do you feel compelled to fill silences? Because that compulsion has cost some of you more authority than you realize. Silence makes you nervous. So you start talking, explaining, softening, clarifying, joking. You rush to make everyone comfortable before you have even asked whether their comfort should be your job in that moment. That is how authority leaks, not always through what you say, through why you say it. If you speak to relieve tension rather than direct it, people can feel that. If you explain because silence feels unbearable, people can feel that too. And once they feel that, they know exactly how to manage you. They know they can create a little discomfort and watch you spend your own authority trying to clean it up. That has to stop, because one of the cleanest forms of power is the ability to hold a beat longer than other people expect, to let the silence stay, to let the question hang, to let the other person feel their own words without rescuing them from the atmosphere they created. That is where the next twist comes in. Let them talk themselves into a corner. Some of you interrupt manipulation too early. You see it so fast that you rush to shut it down before it fully reveals itself. But patient authority often does something smarter. It lets people continue just long enough to expose the shape of their own foolishness. You do not have to accuse immediately when someone is being dishonest. Sometimes you ask one more question, calmly. Sometimes you say nothing and let them keep talking, because insecure, controlling, or sloppy people often reveal more when they think you are not going to challenge them yet. They over-explain, contradict themselves, escalate their tone, show their need for control, reveal the disrespect more clearly than you ever could by reacting too fast. That is why patience is not weakness. It is containment. It is strategic delay. It is the discipline not to throw your energy at the first opening when waiting a few seconds longer will give you 10 times the leverage. You can see this in real life. A coworker talks down to you in a meeting. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, you pause and say, "Can you clarify what you mean by that?" Now they have to hear themselves. Now the room hears them more clearly. Now you are not the emotional one. You are the precise one. Or someone makes a sly joke at your expense in a group. You do not fake laugh. You do not instantly fire back. You hold the silence and say, "Interesting," or "What made you say that?" Now the burden moves. Now they have to carry the weight of their own behavior. That is what a lot of you have not been taught. Authority is not always in the counterattack. Sometimes it is in who gets forced into the light. And the more you learn that, the less tempted you become to overperform strength. Now you understand that calm can be disruptive. Now you understand that stillness can expose people faster than noise ever will. Now you understand that patience, in the hands of someone self-possessed, is not a delay of power. It is an amplification of it. That is the shift. You stop using silence as absence. You start using it as gravity. You stop seeing your composure as something people take advantage of. You start realizing it can become the exact thing that makes careless people unravel around you. And once that clicks, the next level becomes possible. Not just holding silence, speaking truth inside it with precision. Now you understand something most people never fully see. Your calm is not empty. Your silence is not weakness. Your patience is not passivity. It is control. It is timing. It is the decision not to spend force before the moment is worthy of it. But patience alone is not enough, because eventually there comes a moment when silence has done its job. The pattern is clear. The behavior is visible. The room has revealed itself. And now what matters is not just what you noticed. It is how you speak. This is where gentle authority becomes dangerous in the best possible way. Truth with precision. Because a lot of kind people do not struggle with seeing the issue. They struggle with delivering the truth without leaking emotion all over it. They know something was off. They know a line was crossed. They know a boundary needs to be set. But when the moment comes, they either soften it too much, or they wait so long that when they finally speak, all the stored frustration comes out at once. That is what happens when truth is delayed without being structured. It either dissolves or it erupts, and neither one creates respect. Precision does. You have probably felt this before. Someone says something dismissive. You catch it. You feel it in real time. But instead of responding cleanly, you start mentally spiraling. Should I say something? Am I overreacting? Maybe they did not mean it that way. Maybe I should let it go. Maybe I need a softer way to say it. Then by the time you speak, you are no longer speaking from clarity. You are speaking from accumulated internal noise. That is why your delivery matters so much. Not only what you say, the emotional temperature you say it from. Because when a person is truly authoritative, they do not need emotional excess to make the truth land. They let the fact stand on its own legs. That is what non-emotional delivery means. It does not mean robotic. It does not mean cold. It means you are not using your feelings as the vehicle. You are using clarity. That is the recap. Not volume, not heat, not over-explanation. Clarity. The strongest people in the room are often not the ones with the most words. They are the ones whose words do not need supporting actors. They say one clean sentence, and then they let it stand. No chasing, no apologizing, no immediate attempt to soften the impact because other people got uncomfortable hearing something true. This is where many kind people have to unlearn a reflex, the reflex to justify everything. You say no, then explain for 3 minutes. You identify a problem, then rush to reassure everyone that you are not trying to be difficult. You point out a fact, then immediately decorate it with emotional cushioning so no one mistakes your clarity for confidence. But over-justification weakens the statement. It tells people you do not fully trust your own right to say what you just said. And if you do not trust it, they will feel that. So let us make this practical. Stating facts without justification. That mini example matters because it sounds simple, but it changes everything. Instead of, "I'm so sorry, I just have a lot going on, and I know this is probably not ideal, and I don't want you to think I'm being difficult, but I won't be able to take this on right now." You say, "I'm not available for that." That is enough. Instead of, "I just kind of felt like maybe the tone in that meeting was a little strange and I might be overthinking it," but you say, "That comment was inappropriate." That is enough. Instead of, "I just feel like maybe my time isn't really being respected, and I know everybody's busy." You say, "I need more notice than this." That is enough. Do you hear the difference? One version is asking for permission to exist inside the statement. The other version understands it already belongs there. That is what precision sounds like. It is not aggressive. It is not theatrical. It is clean. And clean speech unsettles manipulative people because it gives them less material to work with. The more emotional clutter you attach to your truth, the more openings they have. They can argue with your tone, twist your phrasing, distract from the point, focus on how you said it instead of what was said. But precision removes those side doors. Now the fact is simply there, and they have to deal with it. This is why I need to ask you something directly. Why are you explaining yourself? Really? Why? Why do you feel the need to over-explain boundaries that are already reasonable? Why do you feel the need to prove your right to discomfort before you can name it? Why do you keep translating your clarity into softer and softer language until it no longer protects you? A lot of the time, over-explaining is not kindness. It is fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being called harsh, cold, difficult, dramatic, prideful, or selfish just because you finally stopped speaking in a way that made everybody else more comfortable than you. That fear is costly. Because the more you explain, the more you teach people that your truth is negotiable if they make you uncomfortable enough. That has to end. Gentle authority does not beg to be accepted. It tells the truth cleanly and lets the room do what it will. That is a different kind of peace. And you can feel it in the body. When you speak from precision instead of emotional leakage, your chest stays steadier. Your breathing stays cleaner. Your words do not run ahead of you. You are not trying to chase agreement. You are placing reality on the table. That is powerful. Because when your truth is clean, people may not like it, but they cannot easily dismiss it. And this is where something else becomes available. The power of withdrawal. Because there comes a point where not every situation deserves more words. Not every disrespect deserves another explanation. Not every room deserves continued access to your presence just because you entered it politely. This is where quiet authority gets even stronger. Not only in what it says, in what it removes. A lot of people think power is staying and winning. Sometimes power is leaving without turbulence. Sometimes authority is not in the argument. It is in the exit. This matters because kind people often confuse endurance with maturity. They stay too long. They explain too long. They sit in degrading environments too long. They keep trying to save the tone of a conversation that has already become unworthy of them. Why? Because leaving feels dramatic. Leaving feels like conflict. Leaving feels like proving the other person has too much power over you. But that is not what a clean withdrawal is. Your absence is a consequence, not a punishment. That is the twist. You are not storming out to manipulate. You are removing access because the conditions no longer support respect. That is different. Punishment tries to control the other person's feelings. Consequence simply honors reality. If this continues, I will not remain here. That is not revenge. That is structure. And people who are used to unlimited access to your patience will often experience that structure as aggression. Let them. Because people who benefit from your over-availability usually call boundaries rude. That does not make the boundary wrong. So let us make the graceful exit practical. That is the recap. You do not need a speech. You do not need an explosion. You do not need to drag the room through one last emotional sermon just to prove your reasons. A graceful exit sounds like this. I'm going to step out now. This conversation is no longer productive. I'm not staying for this tone. We can revisit this when it's more respectful, or in some moments, it sounds like nothing at all. You gather your things. You stand up. You leave. That mini example matters because people underestimate how much authority is communicated through what you refuse to keep sitting in. Imagine a toxic meeting. The same person interrupting. The same passive aggression. The same dismissive energy dressed up as professionalism. The old version of you stays, smiles tightly, takes notes while your stomach knots, waits until afterward to collapse in private and tell yourself next time will be different. The stronger version of you watches the pattern, gives it one clean boundary, and if the atmosphere does not correct, leaves, not dramatically, not with a slammed door, with self-respect. That changes everything, because now your presence is no longer free. Now it carries conditions. Now people understand, maybe for the first time, that your calm was never permission. It was grace, and grace can be withdrawn. That is one of the deepest misunderstandings kind people face. Others think mercy means endless access. It does not. Mercy without threshold becomes self-erasure. Mercy with threshold becomes wisdom. And once you understand that, withdrawal stops feeling cruel. It starts feeling accurate. You are not abandoning the room. You are simply refusing to lend your nervous system to an environment that keeps proving it cannot honor it. That is mature power. The ability to leave without hatred. The ability to remove your presence without turning it into theater. The ability to create consequence without becoming chaotic. That is what people feel when someone truly carries gentle authority. They feel the line. They feel the weight. They feel that something has changed, even though the voice never rose. That is the beauty of it. You do not need noise to establish seriousness. You need congruence. If your words say one thing but your presence keeps accepting the opposite, people trust the behavior, not the sentence. But when your words and your withdrawal align, the message becomes unmistakable. That is why absence is powerful, not because you are trying to make people miss you, because absence reveals what your presence had been absorbing. Some rooms only realize how much order you were carrying after you stopped carrying it. Some people only realize how much slack your patience was covering after it is no longer there to protect them from consequence. That is not your job to manage. Let reality teach what your over-explaining never could. And this is where the framework starts tightening. You have learned how to let silence work, how to let truth land cleanly, how to let absence become consequence. But all of this points toward one deeper question. How much mercy is actually helping, and when does mercy become enabling? That is the next threshold. And that is where quiet power becomes unmistakable, not when you learn how to pause, not only when you learn how to speak clearly, not even only when you learn how to leave. It becomes unmistakable when you understand mercy correctly, because some of you have confused mercy with endless tolerance. You have confused forgiveness with access. You have confused compassion with permission, and that confusion has cost you respect, not because kindness is weak, because kindness without threshold trains people incorrectly. It teaches them that your patience has no edge, that your understanding has no limits, that your grace will always absorb what their character refuses to correct. That is dangerous. So let me ask you something directly. Are you enabling them with your forgiveness? That question matters because a lot of kind people keep calling something love long after it has turned into accommodation. They keep saying, I understand where they're coming from. They keep extending grace, keep giving another chance, keep adjusting, keep making room, keep telling themselves that being the bigger person means staying softer than the situation deserves. But if your forgiveness keeps protecting someone from consequence, that is not mercy at its highest form. That is maintenance. That is you carrying the cost of a lesson they keep avoiding. And eventually, your spirit feels that. You feel it when you are about to answer one more message with patience you do not actually have. You feel it when you are about to explain yourself again to someone who has already shown you they benefit from pretending not to understand. You feel it when your body tightens before a conversation you already know will ask too much from you. That tightening is information, because the soul knows when mercy has crossed the line into self-betrayal. This is why the next twist matters so much. Boundaries are the ultimate form of mercy. That sounds harsh to people who think love should always feel soft, but it is true. A boundary is merciful because it tells the truth. It tells the truth about what is sustainable, what is respectful, what is allowed, what is no longer available. And truth is merciful because it gives people a chance to meet reality instead of staying protected by your over-functioning. Without boundaries, many people never confront themselves. They only keep confronting your flexibility. They keep measuring how much more they can take, how much more they can ask, how much more they can get away with before you finally stop cushioning their behavior. So a boundary is not cruelty. It is the point where your mercy stops interfering with reality. That is powerful, because some of you are still imagining boundaries as emotional walls, punishments, coldness, or rejection. No, a real boundary is a threshold, and the mercy threshold is one of the most important things you will ever set. It is the line where your kindness stops being automatic and starts being governed by truth. It sounds like this: I can forgive you and still not keep you close. I can understand your wound and still refuse its impact on me. I can pray for you and still not let you keep entering my peace the same way. I can remain kind without remaining endlessly available. That is mature mercy. Mercy with structure. Mercy with intelligence. Mercy with self-respect. And this is where many kind people begin to fear what they are becoming. Because once you set a threshold, people who benefited from your old lack of one may accuse you of changing. They will say you are colder, harder, different, less available, less forgiving, and in one sense they are right. You are different. You are no longer confusing love with self-erasure. You are no longer calling endless access compassion. You are no longer presenting your nervous system as a public resource. That is not bitterness. That is formation. That is wisdom. So let us make the threshold practical. Because a threshold that lives only in theory is not a threshold at all. It is a wish. What behavior now requires distance? What tone ends access? What pattern no longer gets another long explanation from you? What level of disrespect shifts the conditions of the relationship, the meeting, the conversation, or the room? That is the recap. Name the behavior, name the limit, name the consequence, not emotionally, clearly. If the disrespect continues, I leave. If the tone continues, the conversation ends. If the pattern repeats, access changes. If the trust keeps breaking, the closeness changes. That is what a threshold sounds like. Not dramatic, definite, and some of you need to understand this. A threshold is not only for other people, it is also for you. It is a line you stop crossing inside yourself. I will not explain this 4 different ways just because they do not like the first truth. I will not stay in the room after my body has already told me what this environment costs. I will not betray my own clarity just to be perceived as endlessly kind. That internal threshold changes everything. Because once you stop crossing yourself, other people have fewer places to cross you too, and then the framework completes itself. Because after patience, precision, withdrawal, and threshold comes embodiment. This is where quiet power becomes visible before you even speak. Embodying quiet power is not about performance. It is not about acting dominant. It is not about putting on some artificial confidence costume and trying to look harder than you feel. It is about congruence. Your body stops contradicting your boundaries. Your face stops apologizing for your clarity before your mouth even speaks. Your posture stops communicating uncertainty when your words are trying to set a line. This is why the small things matter. The way you stand, the way you sit, the way your eyes hold contact without aggression and without collapse. That mini example matters because posture and eye contact say things before language ever does. If someone interrupts you and your body shrinks, apologizes, laughs nervously, or looks away too quickly, they register that. If someone tests your tone and your whole nervous system starts leaking urgency, they register that too. But when your body stays present, when your shoulders stay grounded, when your breath does not run away, when your eyes hold steady for 1 beat longer than expected, something changes. Now your presence is doing some of the speaking. Now you are not trying to convince the room you have authority. The room is beginning to feel it. That is quiet power, not louder language, stronger containment. And this is where the final question becomes real. Can you hold the room's tension? Can you? Can you let discomfort exist without rushing to fix it? Can you let someone be disappointed without immediately trying to soothe them out of it? Can you let your truth land and survive the awkward silence after it? Can you hold eye contact after saying something clear instead of instantly filling the air? Because tension makes you anxious, this is where many people lose authority. Not in the truth itself, in the moment after they say the right thing, then immediately start softening it, backtracking it, explaining it, joking it away, making themselves smaller so the room does not have to feel the full weight of what was just said. Do not do that. If the truth creates tension, let tension do its work. Tension is not always a sign something went wrong. Sometimes tension is simply the feeling of reality arriving in a room that was built on avoidance. That is why true authority never has to shout. That is the final twist. Shouting is often what people do when they have lost control of themselves and are trying to regain control of the room. True authority does not need that. It does not need to dominate the air. It does not need to drown out everyone else. It does not need to prove it can get loud, because true authority is not trying to create power in the moment. It is carrying power into the moment. That is why a quiet person with real authority can shift a whole room with one sentence. A look, a pause, a withdrawal, a clean boundary, a refusal to over-explain, a refusal to rescue everyone from the discomfort their own behavior created. That is command. That is presence. That is respect born not from fear, but from unmistakable self-possession. And some of you need that deeply, because you have spent too long thinking the only options were to stay soft and get mishandled, or become hard and lose yourself. Those are not the only options. There is another way, a gentler way, a cleaner way, a way where your kindness is still intact, but no longer easily misread, a way where your patience gathers data instead of inviting disrespect, a way where your words stay clean, your presence stays grounded, and your boundaries do not need a dramatic soundtrack to be real. That is the gentle authority framework. You stop leaking your power through over-explaining. You stop apologizing for what is clear. You stop staying in places that no longer deserve your presence. You stop calling endless forgiveness love when it is really avoidance of consequence. You stop assuming that because you are kind, you must also remain endlessly absorbent. And slowly, something shifts. People begin to feel the line in you, not because you announce it, because you embody it. They feel that your calm is not emptiness. Your patience is not confusion. Your silence is not fear. Your kindness is not surrender. It is governed. It is deliberate. It is strong enough to stay soft without becoming weak. That is rare. And rare things command respect. So hear this before we close. You do not need to become louder to become more powerful. You do not need to become sharper in tone, harder in face, or colder in spirit just to prove you have strength. You need structure. You need timing. You need thresholds. You need the courage to let your body and your words agree. And when that happens, people stop mistaking your gentleness for passivity. Because now your kindness has edges. Now your peace has conditions. Now your presence is not just pleasant, it is weighty. If this gave language to something you have been feeling for a long time, and you know you are done being misread just because your strength does not look loud, stay with this message and practice the framework until your quiet becomes unmistakable.